Coming up in NBN News, police search for a man accused of graffitiing the Australian War Memorial with pro-Palestine slogans. Two men sentenced for murdering a Port Stephens dealer in 2021 in a failed drug robbery. A young motorcyclist killed after crashing into a light pole on the Pacific Highway near Newcastle. A message to Moscow, the G7's big loan deal with Ukraine. And starstruck, thousands of Hunter and Central Coast kids hit the stage in Newcastle. That's next. Sacred building vandalised, police hunting a man who defaced the Australian War Memorial.
Two men learn their fate for a shooting murder at Port Stephens.
6 more arrests over the Wakeley Church riot as the alleged attacker is hit with fresh charges.
The PM under pressure after a union boss declares war on a national sporting code.
And will 100th of a second cost Kate Campbell a place at the Paris Olympics?
This is NBN News with Gavin and Natasha Beyersdorf.
Good evening. Police are tonight searching for a man they believe vandalised the Australian War Memorial.
3 sections of the Canberra site were defaced with pro-Palestinian slogans, an act authorities today described as deplorable.
One of Australia's most sacred sites defaced in a deplorable act of vandalism.
2 men have been jailed over their roles in the 2021 shooting murder of Hunter drug dealer David King. Jane Goldsmith joins us now. Jane, good evening. The sentencing judge was unable to decide just who fired the fatal shot.
That's right, Gav. Elijah Cage and Max Lowcock were both in David King's car at Saltash in Port Stephens when he was gunned down. The judge today describing the incident as a feigned drug transaction. Gav.
Jane, thank you.
A Saltash resident managed to get out safely when their home went up in flames early this morning. The RFS and Fire and Rescue arrived at the house on Lemon Tree Passage Road at around 4 a.m, finding it well alight. The blaze was contained by 5:30, but the home was all but destroyed. Thankfully, the occupant wasn't hurt. 3 men have been charged following an investigation into the supply of prohibited drugs in Moree. Police executed search warrants on homes on Anne and Adelaide Streets on Wednesday morning, where a 35-year-old man allegedly assaulted an officer during his arrest. He was taken to Moree Police Station and later released. Methamphetamine, a gel blaster, cannabis and cash were also found at a Sullivan Place home yesterday. A 56-year-old man and a 33-year-old man were also charged and released. The trio will face Moree Local Court on July 29. Strikeforce Bullshark investigations are continuing.
Tamworth Council says water security has fast become its #1 priority. A new plan was launched today to prepare the future for future drought, with locals now urged to share their ideas for the future.
Securing enough water for a growing population has been no small task for Tamworth Regional Council. Rob Douglas, NBN News.
Northwest High School students are hoping to inspire their younger peers to adopt a healthier lifestyle. The student-led Salsa program rolling out across the region in a bid to turn the tide on rising obesity rates.
Jumping for joy about healthy living.
Nice cut, Fletcher!
A multi-million-dollar boost to eradicate feral pigs is being welcomed by Northwest farmers. The state government has committed an additional $13 million to the cause, which has culled more than 100,000 animals in 8 months. The strategy involves working with local landholders to bait, trap and cull the pests, which kill stock, damage ecosystems and spread disease.
Moree Plains Shire Council is celebrating the appointment of a cross-border commissioner announced on Tuesday in the Queensland state budget. Moree Mayor Mark Johnson says the commissioner will help formulate solutions to major issues in border communities like Boggabilla and Mungandai.
Particularly in terms of natural disasters where we might have floods in the Queensland side and the New South Wales side is clear or vice versa, it's very important that we have access to disaster recovery and the like.
The position is yet to be filled.
Cloudy, cold with patchy rain periods making their way across the region throughout today into this evening.
Next, tragedy at Lake Macquarie with a motorbike rider dead after a crash on the Pacific Highway.
The leaders of the world's 7 largest economies take aim at Russia.
And Kate Campbell's Paris dream in doubt. A man has died following a motorbike crash at Lake Macquarie. Emergency services were called to the Pacific Highway at Charlestown just before 7:30 last night. Police say the motorcycle left the road and hit a light pole. The rider, aged in his 20s, was treated at the scene but couldn't be saved. Officers are investigating the circumstances of the crash.
G7 nations have agreed to use frozen Russian assets to help fund Ukraine's war effort. It was the first order of business in Italy, where world leaders have gathered for crucial talks.
In one of Italy's most beautiful regions, G7 members arrived one by one, welcomed by Italian Prime Minister and summit host Giorgia Meloni. In London, Edward Godfrey, NBN News.
American journalist Evan Gershkovich will face trial in Russia on espionage charges, accused of collecting secret information from a tank factory on behalf of the CIA. The Wall Street Journal reporter was arrested in March last year while covering the Ukraine war and has been designated by the US as wrongfully detained. If convicted, Gershkovich faces up to 20 years in jail.
The shortest days of the year are with us as we approach the winter solstice next Friday. Not only are the days short, but they are shaded as the high-level cloud streams in from the west. Rain also increased across the Central Coast Newcastle region this afternoon. It will be cloudy again tomorrow with increased wet weather. There's also going to be a big spike in the swell on Sunday into Monday as the low in the Tasman intensifies. Patchy light rain periods inland around Tamworth to the western slopes and tablelands. More coastal showers from Gosford to Port. Cold for most, milder around the Queensland border to the Gold Coast.
Next, political stoush, what led to this parliamentary punch-up between Italian lawmakers.
The big bank that's offering a better deal for customers in wealthy suburbs.
And time to shine for thousands of Hunter and Central Coast students.
Police are investigating reports a student from the Hunter School of the Performing Arts used an app to create hundreds of explicit photos of other pupils. It's understood the photos were found on the student's phone, manipulated using artificial intelligence.
Hunter Performing Arts School would have nipped that in the bud as quick as they found it. But we really have to, as a community, we all have a responsibility to tell our children this is just not on. It's just wrong, it's illegal, and it creates such hurt and harm.
The Department of Education says the matter occurred outside of the school and that it is the role of the school to educate students on safety when using social media.
Donald Trump has returned to Capitol Hill for the first time since the shocking riot by his supporters in 2021. The former US president met with Republican lawmakers and called for party unity.
Donald Trump returns to the epicentre of American government.
We have one thing in mind, and that's making our country great.
The Australian share market finished the day and the week lower despite record highs on Wall Street. More from Chris Kohler.
American tech companies like Apple have been roaring to fresh record highs this week, but our market is dominated by banks and miners, and it's been lagging behind. The ASX 200 dropped 25 points today and almost 100 over the week, with those mighty mining companies losing a touch more. Our three biggest are now down between 12 and 21% for the year. The Australian dollar was mostly weaker, but a central bank meeting in Japan pushed us higher against the yen. And now all attention will be turning towards next week's RBA decision. The cash rate is expected to stay at 4.35%, but any changes in tone will be picked apart by the market.
Australians could soon be forced to pay more for orange juice as a global citrus shortage threatens to affect local production. Orange farmers are now urging consumers to shift their spending from supermarkets to the farm gate.
From the fertile banks of Sydney's Hawkesbury River to the Schofield Orchard production line.
It's a big weekend also sport-wise. Let's move now to sport with Jack Howard.
Jack Brandon Smith, well, he isn't going anywhere.
That's according to his coach. After the break, Trent Robinson shuts down suggestions the hooker's future at the Roosters is on shaky ground. Also ahead, the Dolphins sink the Sharks thanks to one of the greatest tries of all time. And the Aussies ready to go for gold at the Eiffel Tower. Taree's Latrell Mitchell gets his final chance to stake a claim for a Blues return tonight when the Rabbitohs take on the Broncos. Danica Mason and Andrew Johns have the late mail from Accor Stadium.
Well, Friday night footy, we cannot wait for this one. The Rabbitohs up against the Broncos. Andrew Johns alongside me. Joey, good to see you.
After the break, Pat Cummins hoses down a fire sparked by his Australian teammate.
This report brought to you by Andromeda Industries, leading manufacturer of steel, cable and rubber products.
Pat Cummins has shut down talk Australia could take it easy against Scotland at the T20 World Cup on Sunday, despite Josh Hazlewood suggesting the team could manipulate the result to ensure England doesn't make it to the next stage.
I was speaking to Josh, he had a bit of a joke about it the other day and I think it got taken a little bit out of context, but no, we'll go out there and just try and play. Scotland have had a really good tournament so far. So.
Australia has already secured its spot in the next stage and may rest players for the match. It's back to business in Group 4 Rugby League following the long weekend bye. Round 9 action kicks off tomorrow with Dungowan at home to Boggabri and North Tamworth up against Werris Creek. Katingal and Gunnedah will play under lights tomorrow night with a 6 p.m. kickoff. Sunday's lone game will see Weewar take on Narrabri, both sides still chasing their first win of the season. In Group 19, Walker and Armidale kick off at 7 tonight, while tomorrow Bingara will face off against the Moree Boomerangs while Narwin takes on Warrialda. There are just 2 games in tomorrow's round 7 of the Central North Rugby Union first grade. The Lions and Brumbies will lock horns at Corindai Rugby Park, while the Tamworth Pirates are at home to Gunnedah. The sides will also meet in the women's 10s, as will Moree and Barraba. The New England competition returns next week. The Northern Inland Academy of Sport is on the hunt for the region's next Indigenous superstar. A talent identification day will be held in Armidale later this month, where a former homegrown footy player will make a special appearance.
Uncovering the next generation of Indigenous talent.
For sure. It's exciting, isn't it? Thank you, Jack.
All right, thank you so much, Jack. Well, we're heading into another weekend and some very wintry conditions are moving in across a large portion of the area. How's our local situation? You'll find out straight after the break. This is indeed winter across the northwest. Cloud, cold and some wet weather moving through as well. This evening's weather photo, it's one of my favourite parts of the state. It's also one of the wettest. Dorrigo Mountain, beautiful shot from Satel Bassin. Lovely part of the country indeed. Over the past 24 hours, wet weather. Where's it been falling? Well, we had that cut-off low yesterday, delivering the rain to parts of South Australia, Western Victoria and the southwest corner of New South Wales. But today, lots of high-level cloud moving on through, and we've also seen a little bit of light drizzle and rain. This low, it's going to intensify over the weekend. It's actually going to retrogress a little bit too. It's going to move back towards the coast and it's going to generate a big swell and maintain the cold air flow. So combined with more cloud and some moisture in it, we've got a cold, bleak looking winter's day on the way. Northern New South Wales is going to see a little bit of sunshine and a little bit of mild weather there, but elsewhere underneath the cloud layer, it is going to be cold and overcast. And there's that latest system tracking up the New South Wales coast and the low retrogressing back towards the coast, generating that big swell which will arrive on Sunday. Another front also headed for the southwest land division, so showers in the forecast for Perth. A little bit cooler for the Alice, but still sunny and dry right throughout the north. Very wintry now right throughout the southeast. Such a large area, the most populated region of the nation, only experiencing mid-teen degree days. Today, tomorrow and more to come. Cold for Sydney as well with showers. Not too bad north of that cloud line for Brisbane. Today we had patchy light falls moving through across parts of the region. Overcast temperatures capped into the mid-teens, 12 for the Upper Hunter and 1 to 12 degrees for Armidale. Freezing beginnings there for Guyra, -4 at Glen Innes. Frost there across northern New South Wales. No frost underneath the cloud cover. North of fine, but then you're going to see a burst of showers move through. So Likely to see light, patchy periods of rain. Again, it's going to be overcast, making for a little bit of a mild night. Still cold, but you're not going to get those super sub-zero degree nighttime or early morning temperatures, but it's going to slow down the daytime heating, so it's another cold one. Mid-teens generally again for most of the northwest, and it's going to be quite cloudy south of that line. So the tablelands, they're lucky to escape the single digits tomorrow. It is going to be cold, a wintry start to the weekend indeed, with some wet weather in the forecast for Tamworth and surrounds. As we take a look at that forecast, the cloud breaking up a little bit on Sunday next week, but it's not going to warm that much. With the clearer skies, we'll have colder nights and frosts likely next week, particularly for the tablelands. Early Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning, very cold, and cold days are going to continue. That is certainly the theme being played out, only maxing out generally into or close to or around the mid-teens for Moree in the plains as well. Checking in on this Friday around Gunnedah, some of that cloud moving through. Not too bad early, but then the cloud moved in, shutting it down, made for a pretty chilly day down Main Street. And look, there is more of this cold, wintry weather on the way for the weekend ahead. A good reason to stay under the quilt tomorrow.
I reckon lots of those. Thank you, Gav. That's NBN News.
So, from all of the team,
good night.
Good night.